I've always believed that integrity doesn't need a spotlight. You just do the work, quietly, thoroughly, and when it's done right, no one notices. That was my role for 15 years at Meridian Manufacturing. I'm Rick Donnelly, 62 years old, and until exactly 9:03 a.m. this past Monday, I was the chief financial officer of a company I helped build from the edge of bankruptcy to a titan in the Midwest manufacturing space. I wasn't the loudest voice in the room, never wore flashy suits. I didn't play the political game. I played the numbers. And the numbers? They never lied. But apparently I wasn't modern enough for where the company was going. And when I joined Meridian, we were still a scrappy family-owned operation. 3 struggling factories in Cincinnati, trying to survive the 2008 financial crisis. I was hired by Harold Phillips, the founder, after he cold-called me at my office late one night. "Rick," he said, "we need someone who sleeps better when the books balance." I knew exactly what he meant. I'd grown up in my father's hardware store just across the river in Covington, Kentucky. Stocked shelves during the day, balanced ledgers at night. My dad used to say, "If you can't count it, you don't own it." That stuck with me. I turned down offers in New York and Chicago because I believed in building something close to home, something solid. And for a while, we did just that. Through 2 recessions, 3 restructurings, and 1 global acquisition crisis, I kept Meridian's financial house in order. No scandals, no restatements, no missed audits, just clean books. We didn't grow by making noise. We grew by making smart decisions. Then Harold retired. They wanted energy at the top, a new direction, a new face. So the board brought in Travis Mercer, Harvard MBA, Silicon Valley startup veteran, 36 years old with shoes more expensive than my entire suit. The day he walked in, I knew the culture was about to change. He didn't ask about our cash flow strategies, didn't inquire about our capital structure. Instead, he talked about disruption, realigning the brand narrative, and amplifying our niche presence. Niche. That's what he called our mid-market position. A niche waiting to be transformed. Within weeks, Travis hired consultants I'd never heard of, initiated a digital transformation initiative, and started making decisions that bypass standard procurement protocols, like hiring a marketing agency run by his college roommate. At 4 times the budgeted rate. I questioned it. He smirked. "We're thinking bigger now, Rick. Old constraints don't apply." Ashiuri. Notice the first time I truly saw the writing on the wall was during a casual, one-on-one he scheduled. He sat in my chair, not across the desk, in my actual chair, his feet propped on the desk I'd used for over a decade. "The market's shifting," he said. "We need someone who speaks the language of modern finance." Then he dropped the name, Zachary Hughes, age 29. Resume, impressive. Personality, razor sharp and media savvy. Most recently, a viral TEDx talk on decentralizing corporate finance in the AI era. "We're bringing him in as the new CFO, Travis said, almost like it was a promotion I should be happy about. 2 weeks from now." I nodded, gave him the same handshake I'd given Harold the day I joined. And by 5 p.m. that day, my cardboard box was packed. 1 photo of Patricia, my late wife, a coin from our IPO celebration, and a leather portfolio she'd given me on our 20th anniversary. 15-year, packed into 1 box. Here's the thing, though. I hadn't spent the last 6 months watching Travis change the company. I'd been watching the numbers, because the moment he walked in, the book started breathing differently. At first, it was small. Vendor names I didn't recognize. Budget reallocations with no documentation. Invoices for services never rendered. Then came Vertex Solutions, a digital consultancy hired to streamline our data systems. No one seemed to know who approved them, but the checks kept going out. I asked Bethany from accounts. She'd been with me since day 1. "February," she whispered. "That's when the Vertex invoices started." That was 2 weeks before Travis even mentioned Zachary Hughes. That's when I knew. This wasn't about me being outdated. This was about removing the last layer of resistance before a bigger play. So I did what I always did. I documented. I didn't go to the press. I didn't storm into the boardroom. I cross-referenced vendor addresses, downloaded invoice PDFs, created timelines. One night, Kevin from internal audit, a young guy I'd mentored, came by my office. "Rick," he said quietly, "the tech investment numbers don't match. Something's off." "Document everything," I told him. "Factual, no opinions." Patricia would have told me to make a scene. "Don't let them bury your work," she'd say. But cancer took her 3 years ago, and with her went the fire. What remained was precision. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. The numbers didn't add up, and they weren't meant to. My final board meeting lasted 22 minutes. No mention of my 15 years of service, no farewell speech, just an agenda item, CFO transition update. Travis smiled through his jargon-filled pitch. The chairman, William Foster, couldn't even meet my eyes. "We're thrilled to welcome Zachary Hughes. His innovative approach to capital allocation will reposition Meridian for the future." I sat at the end of the table, watching the same men who used to applaud my quarterly reports now nodding like strangers. As everyone stood, William briefly stopped beside me. "You've been an asset, Rick," he said, patting my shoulder. An asset, like a machine that had depreciated too far to justify repairs. With that night, I laid everything out on the dining room table. Invoices, contracts, emails, Vertex Solutions, Alpine Innovations, other shell vendors I hadn't noticed before. One company was created just 3 days before Travis became CEO. Another traced back to an investment firm, one connected to Jacob Foster, William's nephew, who had recently joined the board. This wasn't just financial mismanagement, it was planned. A hostile infiltration disguised as corporate modernization. And my removal? Step 1. But now I had the full picture. So I sat down at my laptop, opened the secure folder I'd been compiling for months, and I began preparing for war. Quietly, precisely. If there's one thing I've learned from a life in finance, it's this. You don't win by shouting the truth. You win by letting the truth whisper, just loud enough, in the right ears. The morning after my boardroom exit, I woke up not as Meridian's CFO, but as something far more dangerous. A man with time, motive, and access. You see, I hadn't left empty-handed. During my final weeks, I'd created what we used to call in accounting circles a transition shadow. It was a failsafe, an admin account logged quietly into the audit server. Not to tamper, not to manipulate, just to watch. And now as I stared at my laptop on the dining room table, Patricia's old coffee mug in my hand, I began watching. Really watching. The audit logs didn't lie. Alpine Innovations wasn't just a vendor. It was a hub, a nerve center. It had shell companies connected to other shells. Layers of fake contractors, digital marketing, consultants, and tech visionaries. And then there was Vertex Solutions, the crown jewel. Vertex had received 7 payments over $150,000 in the past 3 months alone. Their website? A single landing page with stock photos. Their mailing address? A P.O. box. But what really made my blood run cold was the incorporation paperwork I tracked down late into the night. Zachary Hughes, the wunderkind CFO replacing me, wasn't just a consultant. He was listed as a founding partner at Vertex 3 years ago. He had conveniently removed himself from public documents just months before his TEDx talk. This wasn't a random promotion. This was an installation. And now I had to be sure. So I made one call to William Foster, chairman, old school, had known me since the Harold Phillips days. "William," I said, "there are some irregularities I think you should be aware of. They predate Zachary's arrival." A pause, then, "Rick, I understand this is hard, but the board supports Travis. We're moving forward." Then another sentence, the one that told me everything. "Travis mentioned you might reach out." Click. He was already spinning the narrative. I wasn't just gone. I was being erased. The next morning, an email arrived from Meridian's legal department. Legal speak for, "If you say anything publicly, we'll bury you." They invoked confidentiality. They danced around defamation. But the intent was clear. Don't talk. Don't look. Don't fight. But here's the thing. That email didn't scare me. It confirmed I was right. That afternoon, I reached out to Kevin, the internal audit analyst who had confided in me before I left. We met in a diner outside the city, neutral ground. His hands were shaking. They promoted me, Rick. I'm Big Rays now, reporting directly to Zachary. How's it working out? He sipped his coffee. They're changing everything. New software, new pipelines. I had to sign 2 more NDAs. He paused, then looked up. They're saying things about you, that you botched last quarter's report, that Zachary had to fix your errors. I clenched my jaw. They're rewriting history, Kevin. I have a mortgage, twins in college. I can't. I put a hand on his shoulder. Take care of your family, I understand. He left in a hurry, and I sat there, alone, again, but not helpless. The next morning, I called Bethany. I didn't say much, just asked if she remembered the Jackson Protocol. She paused, then whispered, "The parallel audit trail?" I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. "That backup still runs?" "As far as I know, Zachary would have to dig deep to even find it. And the archive? Iron Mountain still gets monthly backups? First of each month." That was all I needed. Even if they wiped the current servers, the original records were locked in a secure facility, immune to digital scrubbing. Now I had leverage. That afternoon, I drafted a formal letter to internal audit. Not from me, from Bethany. I slid the envelope across the table during coffee. It cites only what you'd reasonably see in your role. If you submit it, they can't retaliate. You'll be protected. She stared at the envelope like it might explode, and then she nodded. Tomorrow. By nightfall, I had created 3 offline backups, 2 encrypted cloud folders, 1 dead man switch. Every 48 hours, I had to input a code. If I didn't, the evidence would automatically be sent to the SEC, DOJ, and 3 investigative journalists I trusted. I also scheduled 3 emails into 3 specific board members. 1. Elaine Morrison, retired manufacturing exec, clean track record. 2. David Patel, represented the Workers' Pension Fund. 3. Anthony Wilson, old school, quiet, but always present. In those emails, I didn't scream. I asked questions, I provided hints, and I let the numbers speak. 2 days later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Mr. Donnelly, this is Vanessa Taylor, SEC Enforcement Division. We received an anonymous tip. Your name came up." I took a breath. "I'm not surprised. Would you be willing to meet?" "Not yet," I said, "but I'm preparing something." And just like that, the clock started ticking. 3 days. That's what I gave myself. 3 days to finish this, before anyone else moved first, before they tried to destroy the trail, before someone tried to silence me permanently. Here's day 1. I notarized an affidavit documenting everything, gave a sealed package to my attorney, reached out to a forensic accountant I trusted, on standby. Bethany filed the whistleblower complaint. Day 2. I monitored internal traffic. Zachary began asking questions. Kevin texted, "Zed asking about audit backups. Looks nervous." Day 3. The storm broke. At 9 a.m., Bethany's complaint hit Zachary's desk. At 10 a.m., the emails reached Elaine, David, and Anthony. By noon, Elaine called an emergency board meeting as audit chair. I wasn't there, but Bethany texted updates. 2 p.m., board meeting underway. Travis looks pale. 2:40, Zachary pulled into legal's office. 3:15, external auditors just arrived. 4U, William's face, like he saw a ghost. That night, I turned off my phone, walked along the Ohio River, watched the skyline flicker on. No announcements, no press conferences, just the quiet unraveling of a lie. 6 weeks. That's how long it took for everything to fall apart. Not with a dramatic arrest, not with headlines blazing or a CEO being dragged out in handcuffs. No. It started the way corruption always ends. Quietly, surgically, internally. Bethany's formal complaint triggered an automatic audit process that Zachary couldn't stop. The auditors from Delacour and Gray arrived the same day. My scheduled emails landed in the inboxes of Elaine Morrison, David Patel, and Anthony Wilson. By lunch, Elaine had called an emergency session of the audit committee. By sunset, the entire executive team under Travis Mercer, including Zachary Hughes, was suspended. To the Rafoninum, could Bethany texted me updates like weather reports from a war zone. Zachary escorted into side room, Widerar legal. He looked shell-shocked. Travis keeps saying it's a misunderstanding. Elaine's not buying it. Board just voted to bring in a forensic team. The atmosphere inside Meridian had shifted. Suddenly, no one was untouchable. Suddenly, the culture of invincibility crumbled like a sugar shell. All it took was one woman with courage, one thread, one clean ledger, and the storm came rolling in. As the next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. 3 missed calls from William Foster, 2 from Travis, 1 from Jacob Foster. I let them ring. No callbacks. They knew. They weren't calling to apologize, they were calling to contain. But there was one call I did answer. "Rick, this is Anthony Wilson." His voice was gruff, aged, familiar. 15 years of clean books, no scandals, no gaps. I should have said something when they pushed you out. You're saying it now, Anthony. That's what counts. He cleared his throat. The board just appointed me acting chairman while we sort through this mess. A pause. We'd like you to come back, Rick. Just temporarily. Help the forensic team. Stabilize the transition. I walked out to the porch, looked over the Ohio River. I thought about Patricia, about the nights we spent watching that water in silence, and I smiled. I'll help with the investigation, I said, but I won't be coming back permanently. May I ask why? I watched a barge glide across the horizon. Because Meridian needs someone who can innovate, I said, and I'm just a little too old school. 3 months later, I sat on the porch of a modest cabin in Asheville, North Carolina. The view, rolling mountains and a sky so wide it made you feel small in the best way. Patricia and I had always dreamed of retiring here. She never got to see it, but I kept the promise. Meridian had offered a generous settlement for my consulting work during the forensic review. It was enough to buy the cabin outright, and then some. I didn't want a press conference. I didn't want credit. I just wanted quiet. The forensic investigation confirmed what I had suspected. Over $12 million siphoned through shell vendors, inflated contracts, and fake consultants. Multiple connections between Travis, Zachary, Vertex Solutions, and Alpine Innovations. A shadow network tied to investment groups, including the one that had placed Jacob Foster on the board. It wasn't embezzlement. It was orchestrated looting, hidden beneath the language of digital transformation. Travis and Zachary were indicted for securities fraud and conspiracy. Jacob Foster resigned from the board and disappeared from public view. William Foster, once the face of Meridian stability, quietly stepped down. Elaine Morrison, David Patel, and Anthony Wilson led the internal recovery effort. The company didn't collapse. It evolved. One evening, my phone buzzed. A text from Bethany. Got promoted to director of accounting. New CEO wants to rebuild the department properly. Thank you. I typed back, well deserved. And Bethany, always keep a parallel audit trail. A week later, my lawyer called. The SEC is closing their case. Meridian agreed to penalties and structural reforms. No punishment for employees or shareholders. You did good, Rick. That mattered to me. Bethany, Kevin, the warehouse teams, the plant workers. They wouldn't suffer for someone else's greed. The system had failed them, but it hadn't broken them. I opened the leather portfolio Patricia gave me for our 20th anniversary. Inside, the last photo we ever took together, at a lake house in northern Michigan. She was laughing, wind in her hair, her eyes filled with fire. You were right, I whispered. I should have made more time for views like this. I hadn't gone to war. I hadn't burned bridges. But I had made sure the truth came out, not with noise, but with numbers. The next morning, I drove into town to meet with the director of a local nonprofit. They needed help organizing their books. Nothing fancy, just clean, reliable accounting. I shook her hand and smiled. Some might call that work small. Nah, but that's how good things are built. Not through disruption, not through synergy, through patience, through quiet truth, through numbers that speak for themselves.